So in this episode, we're going to be talking about the brand new second generation Arcade1Up Partycade. Now, this thing has 8 games in it. It's a Pac-Man version, and it is actually really cool. I'm going to go through a list of things that I like about it, but there's a few things that I dislike about it that I'll also mention in this video. Now, this is just my first impressions. I've been playing with it for a day or so, and I have some plans with it. I'm going to try a couple different things because I think there's some different people in the community that want to use the Partycade in different ways, and I want to demonstrate how they could be used. And I'll talk about what my plans are for this Partycade down the line, but let's step right into the video. So check this out. If you go to hsn.com, you can pick up this thing for only $199, and that is free shipping. So first, we're talking about the price. The price is really good for what you're getting, because what are you getting? You're actually getting everything you need to build your own arcade. So think about that. When you buy a $500 Arcade1Up cabinet, it's going to come with a 17-inch monitor and controls and a PCB to be able to play that games. But of course, it also comes with all the wood to be able to assemble the 3/4 scale cabinet and usually a riser, right? So that's probably what you want. What are you going to get with the Partycade? Well, imagine they took that cabinet and you still get the monitor, you still get the buttons and controls, except for you're going to hang it on the wall, or you're going to hang it on a door, or maybe you're going to play it on a table, which the value, I think, of the Partycade is that it could take up very little space if you hang it on a door, like, say, a closet door. Or I've actually seen people in the community where they buy several of these, line them up, and they hang them on the wall. And that's actually a really cool idea because it actually will take up less space in your game room. So the other thing is, this second generation Partycade, it's running the BOE monitor, which really surprised me. I thought Arcade1Up is going to use like a lower end monitor like they did in their first generation Partycade. But the second generation Partycade has exactly the same model that's in all their newer Arcade1Up cabinets that everyone says is pretty much the best 4x3 monitor on the market that we really have seen in the home arcade space. So it's really cool that Arcade1Up is using that. So I looked at the chipset. It's using a Rock chip, the RK3038, I believe. And I looked up that Rock chip, and I think it's a dual core. I couldn't find spec for that exact chip, but it's probably a fine enough chip to run games like Pac-Man on it. So I did a little bit of playback of those games, just a handful, and they played just fine, so I don't think the emulation has any issues. Yeah, so far running through the cabinet, like, volume seemed to be good. I did a quick game save for Pac-Man, and I was able to back out of the game and come back into it, and it saved my high score. I've even turned the unit completely off and come back in, and it will play the high score. I didn't test every single game, and maybe there's by chance something wrong with the high score, because some of the arcade cabinets do have issues with the high score, and I didn't run through a lot of testing on it. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to pick this up is because my daughter really loves some of these older games, including Dig Dug and Galaga and Galaxian. She's a huge fan of Galaxian, and not a lot of the units that I have that. And she actually wants the Partycade to go in her playroom, and I think that's a good idea. Eventually we'll do that because we can hang it on the wall. It won't take up a lot of space, and it's something that she can play every now and then, and eventually when she has friends come over, it's something they can play, and she can show some old retro games to her cousin, and her cousins really do like some of those older games. They've come over and have a lot of fun with it, and for $199, that's pretty cool. But the one thing I just really wish that Arcade1Up would fix, and I'm almost not really angry about it. I'm gonna talk through it. So all the games I tested, they got bilinear filtering turned on. So if you don't know what that is, most of the people in the community that love playing retro games, when they play it on an LCD monitor, they actually like to see the pixels, right? So when they look sharp and boxy, that's actually desirable. Some of the best emulation does it that way. But on this unit, there's no option to turn off the blurring effect, which actually smooths the edges. But I think some people would prefer that, and that's the thing. We're talking about a preference. There's a bit of people out there, maybe even the mass majority of people that buy a Pac-Man cabinet would get it, and they'll say, oh my gosh, this looks pixelated. They'll not like all of those harsh and straight edges, where some people like us that like to play a lot of the retro games do like the boxy shape. So that's why I think Arcade1Up, or the company that does the emulation for Arcade1Up, decided to turn on bilinear filtering by default. I'm guessing they actually received a lot of phone calls from people around the first generation that one of their complaints was that it's pixelated, and they wish that's not the way they remember their games. And to be fair, those games originally ran on CRTs, and the CRT kind of did some effects on it, but not the blurring effect that you see on the bilinear filtering turn on in some of these emulation games. And so I just wish they had an option to turn that off. Now, they did say they're going to come out with firmware updates because a lot of the new Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man cabinets have that bilinear filtering turned on by default, and they have promised that they're going to make a firmware update. That's right. These things can take firmware updates. It has the USB at the bottom, and when those firmware updates come out, it says there's going to be a new menu where you can go in and you can pick the preference that you want. What I don't know is if they're going to do that for things like the Partycade and the Countercade, which are much less expensive cabinets. It may be the case that they end up just leaving it the way that is. But that's my only real complaint about it so far. Just a quick review of the cabinet. If you're interested in getting the Partycade and you're on the fence, $199 so far, except for the bilinear filtering, I would say it's goodbye. And especially because for that price, it's free shipping and you're going to get 8 games. It's actually not a bad thing. Now, if you're interested in modding this cabinet, this is going to take the same recommendations for if you wanted to put your own device in it per se. It's going to be the same thing for modding some of the newer generation of Arcade1Up cabinets. You're going to use an LVDS converter that takes HDMI and then plug in whatever your device is and then try to do button mapping. You're going to connect all the controls that are on the deck to that. And maybe that's something I would plan on doing on, eventually. And that's one of the reasons why I bought this particular Pac-Man. I think it looks great. With that dark black feel, I love the look of that and the way that it will contrast. Even against right now, I have it against my white door, and I think it looks really, really cool. But also because it has 3 action buttons on it. So think about that, 3 action buttons, and one of the most popular mods out there is to replace some of these vertical cabinets with games. And a lot of the vertical games that are out there, the emulation, they play with 3 buttons. So this thing is almost ready to go for anyone that wanted to, build their own kit, build their own DIY retro gaming, and they use these as parts. And I'm not really sure if that's what I'm going to do long term, but I love the idea of having the option of taking a Partycade that already has 3 action buttons on it and a joystick on it, and maybe later I would put more games on it. And the opportunity is why it kind of put me over the fence. It was like, yeah, I think I'll pick this up because it could have a future if I get bored with the 8 games. So that's all I had the time to talk about today. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button, hit like, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about it. And keep in mind, hit subscribe because I'm going to have at least one more video on the Partycade because maybe I'll do a proper review, but I actually have some really cool ideas for the Partycade and what you can do with it. And I'd love to share that with you. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Okay, take care.